What's up, everybody? Hopefully, y'all can hear me. I really hope y'all can. My test it real quick. Yeah, I really hope y'all can. Yep, all right. Microphone is working. We're finishing this today, right now, actually. We need a quick recap of what happened last time. This is a mirror era said. I think Quidditch. Right? Mirror said and Quidditch. Yep. Today is the rest of the book, chapters 14 through 18, starting right now. Quirrell, however, must have been braver than they thought. No, I thought he did seem to be getting thinner and paler, but it didn't look as if he cracked yet. Every time they passed the third floor corridor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione would press their ears to the door to check that Buffy was still growling inside. Snape was sweeping about in his usual bad temper, which surely meant that the stone was still safe. Whenever Harry passed Quirrell these days, he gave him an encouraging sort of smile, and Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. Hermione, however, had more on her mind than the Sorcerer's Stone. She had started drawing up study schedules and color coding all of her notes. Harry and Ron wouldn't have minded, but she kept nagging them to do the same. Hermione, the exams are ages away. 10 weeks, Hermione snapped. That's not ages. That's like a second to Nicholas from now. But why are we not 600 years old? Ron reminded her. Anyway, what are you studying for? You already know it all. What am I studying? Are you crazy? You realize we need to pass the exams to get into second year. They're very important. I should have started studying a month ago. I don't know what's gotten into me. Unfortunately, the teachers seem to be thinking along the same lines as Hermione. They piled so much homework on them that the Easter holidays weren't nearly as much fun as the Christmas ones. It was hard to relax with Hermione next to you, reciting the 12 uses of dragon's blood or practicing wand movements. Moaning and yawning, Harry and Ron spent most of their free time in the library with her, trying to get through all their extra work. I'll never remember this, Ron burst out one afternoon, throwing down his quill and looking longingly out the library window. It was the first really fine day they'd had in months. The sky was a clear, forget-me-not blue, and there was a feeling in the air of summer coming. Harry, who was looking up Dittany in 1,000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, didn't look at Ron said, Hagrid, what are you doing in the library? Hagrid shuffled into view, hiding something behind his back. He looked very out of place in his moleskin overcoat. Just looking, he said, in a shifty voice that got there just at once. And what are you lot up there? He looked suddenly suspicious. You're not still looking for Nicholas Flamel, are you? Oh, we found out he is ages ago, Ron said impressively. And we know what the dog's garden. It's a sort of Hagrid looked around quickly to see if anyone was listening. Go shouting about it. What's the matter with you? There are a few things we want to ask you, as a matter of fact, said Harry. But what's guarding the stone apart from Fluffy? Said Hagrid again. Listen, come and see me later. I'm not promising I'll tell you anything, mind. But don't go rabbiting about it in here. Students aren't supposed to know. They'll think I told you. See you later, then, said Harry. Hagrid shuffled off. What was he hiding behind his back? Said Hermione thoughtfully. Do you think it had anything to do with the stone? I'm going to guess which section he was in, said Ron, who had had enough of working. He came back a minute later with a pile of books in his arms and slammed them down onto the table. Dragons, he whispered. Hagrid was looking up stuff about dragons. Look at these. Dragon species of Great Britain and Ireland. From Egg to Inferno, the Dragon Keeper's Guide. Hagrid's always wanted a dragon. He told me so the first time I ever met him, said Harry. But it's against our laws, said Ron. Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Orthodox Convention of 1709. Everyone knows that. It's hard to stop muggles from noticing us if we're keeping dragons in the back garden. Anyways, we can't tame dragons. It's dangerous. You should see the barn Charlie's got off the wild ones. What's up, Madge? Welcome into Chptrs. But there aren't wild dragons in Britain, said Harry. Of course there are. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think any Nightbot works, Madge. Come on screen of one her Hebridean blacks. I have to say that in my American accent. The mystery of magic is of pushing up anything. My Nightbot don't work at all. I have him as a mob, but he doesn't ever come in. The Ministry of Magic has a job of hushing them up, I can tell you. Our kind has to keep putting spells on muggles who spy them, to make them forget. So what on earth was Hagrid up to? Said Hermione. When they knocked on the door of the gamekeeper's hut an hour later, they were surprised to see all the curtains were closed. Hagrid called, "Who is it?" before he let them in, and then shut the door quickly behind them. It was stifling hot inside. Even though it was such a warm day, there was a blazing fire in the gate. Hagrid made the tea and offered them stoat sandwiches, which they refused. So, you want to ask me something? Yes, said Harry. There's no point beating around the bush. We were wondering if you could tell us what's guarding the source apart from Fluffy. Hagrid frowned at him. Of course I can't, I said. Number one, I don't know myself. Number two, you know too much already. So I wouldn't tell you if I could. That stone's here for a good reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts. I suppose you've worked that out and all. Beats to me how you even know about Fluffy. Oh, come on, Hagrid. Sorry, I'm nasally for some reason. Oh, come on, Hagrid. You might not want to tell us, but you do now. You know everything that goes on around here, said Hermione in a warm, flattering voice. Hagrid's beard twitched, and they could tell he was smiling. We only wondered who had done the guarding, really, Hermione went on. We wondered who Dumbledore had trusted enough to help him. We only worried who done the guarding, really. Blah, blah, blah. Hagrid's chest swelled in these last words, and Ron beamed to it. Or Ron beamed at Hermione. Karen Ron beamed at Hermione. Well, I don't suppose it's to tell you that. Let's see. He borrowed Fluffy from me. Then some other teachers did enchantments. Professor Sprout, Professor Footlick, Professor McGonagall. He tipped him off on some groups. Professor Quirrell and Dumbledore himself did something, of course. Hang on, I forgot someone. Oh, yeah, Professor Snape. Snape? Yeah. You're not so on about that, are you? Look, Snape helped protect us all. He's not about to steal it. Harry knew Ron and Hermione were thinking the same thing as he was. If Snape had been in on protecting the stone, it must have been easy to find out how the other teachers had guarded it. He probably knew everything, except, it seemed, Quirrell's spell on how to get past Fluffy. You're the only one who seems knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid? Said Harry anxiously. And you wouldn't tell anyone, would you? Not even one of the teachers? Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore, said Hagrid proudly. Well, that's something. Harry muttered to the others. Hagrid, can we have a window open? I'm boiling. Can't, Harry. Sorry, said Hagrid. Harry noticed and glanced at the fire. Harry looked at it, too. Hagrid! What's that? But he already knew what it was. In the very heart of the fire, underneath the kettle, was a huge black egg. Ah, said Hagrid, fiddling nervously with his beard. That's where did you get it? Where did you get it, Hagrid? Said Ron, crouching over the fire to get a closer look at the egg. It must have cost you a fortune. Won it? Said Hagrid. Last night, I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game of cards with a stranger. I think I was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest. But what are you going to do with it when I hatch? Said Hermione. Well, I've been doing some reading, said Harry, pulling a large book from under his pillow. Got this out of the library. Dragon breeding for pleasure and profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in here. Keep the egg in the fire because their mothers breathed on them, see? And when it hatches, feed it on a bucket of brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. And see here, how to recognize different eggs. What I got there is on a region reach back. They're rare, them. He looked very pleased with himself, but Hermione didn't. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, she said. But Hagrid wasn't listening. He was humming merrily as he stoked the fire. So now they had something else to worry about. What might happen to Hagrid if anyone find out? He was hiding an illegal dragon in his hut. Wonder what it's like to have a peaceful life, Ron said. As evening after evening, they struggled with all their extra homework they were getting. Hermione had now started making study schedules for Harry and Ron, too. It was driving them nuts. Then, one morning, breakfast morning time, then one breakfast time, Hedwig brought Harry another note from Hagrid. He had only written 2 words. It's hatching. Ron wanted to skip herbology and go straight down there to the hut. Hermione wouldn't hear of it. Hermione, how many times in our lives are we going to see our dragon hatching? We've got to lessons. You'll get into trouble. And that's nothing to do with Hagrid. It's one Hagrid when someone finds out what he's doing. Shut up, Harry whispered. Malfoy was only a few feet away and he had stopped dead to listen. How much had he heard? Harry didn't like the look on Malfoy's face at all. Ron and Hermione argued all the way to herbology, and in the end, Hermione agreed to run down to Hagrid with the other two during morning break. When the bell sounded from the castle at the end of their lesson, the 3 of them dropped their trowels at once and hurried through the grounds to the edge of the forest. Hagrid greeted them, looking flustered and excited. Snap out! He ushered them inside. The egg was lying on the table. There were deep cracks in it. Something was moving inside. A funny clicking noise was coming through. They all drew their chairs up to the table and watched with bated breath. All at once, there was a scraping noise, and the egg split open. The baby dragon flopped onto the table. Wasn't exactly pretty. Harry thought it looked like a crumpled black umbrella. Its spiny wings were huge compared to its skinny jet body. It had a long snout with wide nostrils, stubs of horns, and bulging orange eyes. It sneezed. A couple of sparks flew out of the snout. Isn't it beautiful? Harry murmured. He reached out a hand to stroke the dragon's beard. It snapped at his fingers, showing a pointed fangs. Listen, he knows his mummy, said Hagrid. Hagrid, how fast do Norwegian rejects grow exactly? Hagrid was about to answer when the color suddenly drained from his face. He left his feet and ran to the window. What's the matter? Someone was looking through the gap in the curtains. It's a kid. He's running back up to the school. Harry bolted to the door to look out. Even at a distance, there was no mistaking it. Malfoy had seen the dragon. Something about the smile lurking on Malfoy's face during the next week made Harry very nervous. They spent most of their free time in Hagrid's trying to agree with them. Just let him go, Harry urged. Set him free. Time. He's too little. He died. They looked at the dragons. They had grown 3 times in length in just a week. Smoke kept furrowing out of his nostrils. Hagrid hadn't been doing gamekeeping duties because the dragon was keeping him so busy. They were keeping brandy bottles and chicken feathers all over the floor. What's that, dragon? I'm back. Sorry about that. Uh, they looked at the dragon. It had grown 3 times in length in just a week. Smoke kept furrowing out of his nostrils. Hagrid hadn't been doing his gamekeeping duties because the dragon was keeping him so busy. There were empty brandy bottles and chicken powders all over the floor. I've decided to call him Norbert, said Hagrid, looking at the dragon with misty eyes. He really knows me now. What? Norbert, Norbert, where's Mommy? He's lost his marbles, Ron muttered in Harry's ear. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, give it 2 weeks and Norbert's going to be as long as your house. Malfoy could go to Dumbledore at any moment. Hagrid bit his lip. I I know I can't keep him forever. But I can't just dump him. I can't. Harry suddenly turned to Ron. Charlie, he said. You're losing it too, said Ron. I'm Ron, remember? No, Charlie, your brother. Charlie in Romania, studying dragons. We could send Norbert to him. Charlie can take care of him and then put him back in the wild. Brilliant, said Ron. How about it, Hagrid? And in the end, Hagrid agreed that they could send an owl to Charlie to ask him. Good man of you, Hagrid, agreeing to ask permission to send a letter. The following week dragged by. Wednesday night found Hermione and Harry sitting alone in the common room. Ooh. Long after everyone else had gone to bed. The clock on the wall had just chimed midnight when the portrait hole burst open. Ah, Ron appeared out of nowhere as he pulled off Harry's invisibility cloak. He had been down at Hagrid's hut, helping him feed Norbert, and was now eating dead rats by the crate. It bit me, he said, showing him his hand, which was wrapped in a bloody handkerchief. I'm not going to be able to quit for a week. I tell you, that dragon's the most horrible animal I've ever met. But the way that dragon's the most horrible animal I've ever met. But the way Hagrid goes on about it, he goes a fucking bunny rabbit. When it bit me, he told me he right off frightening it. He told me off for frightening it. And when I left, he was singing it a lullaby. There was a tap on the dark window. It's Hedwig, said Harry, hurrying to let her in. She'll have Charlie's answer. The three of them put their heads together to read the note. Dear Ron, how are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian words back, but it won't be easy getting him here. I think the best thing will be to send him over with some friends of mine who are coming to visit me next week. Trouble is, they mustn't be seen carrying an illegal dragon. Could you get could you get the Ridgeback up to the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? They can meet you there and take him away while it's still dark. Send me an answer as soon as possible. Love, Charlie. They looked at one another. We've got the invisibility cloak, said Harry. Shouldn't be too difficult. I think the cloak's big enough to cover two of us and Norbert. It was a mark of how bad the last week had been that the other two agreed with him. Anything to get rid of Norbert and Malfoy. There was a hitch. By the next morning, Ron's bitten hand had swollen to twice its usual size. He didn't know whether it was safe to get him out of Pomfrey. Would she recognize a dragon bite? By the afternoon, though, he had no choice. The cut had turned a nasty shade of green. It looked as if Norbert's fangs were poisonous. You think it's a dragon? Harry and Hermione rushed up to the hospital wing at the end of the day to find Ron in a terrible state in bed. It's not just my hand, he whispered. Oh, that feels like it's all about to fall off. All of that feels like it's about to fall off. Malfoy told Mom Pamphlet he wanted to borrow one of my books. So he could come have a good laugh at me. She kept threatening me, telling me what really bit me. I told her it was a dog, but I don't think she believes me. I shouldn't have let him with the Quidditch match. That's why he was doing this. Harry and Hermione tried to calm Ron down. It's all over at midnight on Saturday, said Hermione. But that didn't soothe Ron at all. On the contrary, he sat bolt upright and broke into a foot. Midnight on Saturday, he said in a hoarse voice. Oh no. I just remembered. Charlie's letter was in that book Malfoy took. He's going to know we're getting rid of Malfoy. Harry and Ron didn't get a chance to answer. Madame Pomfrey came at that moment and made them leave, saying Ron needed to sleep. It's too late to change the plan now, Harry told Hermione. We haven't got time to send Charlie another hour. This could be our only chance to get rid of Norbert. We'll have to risk it. And we have got the invisibility cloak. Malfoy doesn't know about that. They found Fang at the boarhound. They found Benny the Boarhound sitting outside with a bandaged tail when they went to tell Haggard, who opened a window to talk to them. I won't let you in, he puffed. Norbert's at a tricky stage. Nothing I can't handle. When I told him about Charlie's letter, his eyes filled with tears, although that might have been because Norbert had just bitten him on the leg. Arr, it's all right. You only got my boot. Just playing. He's only a baby after all. The baby banged its tail on the wall, making the windows rattle. Harry and Hermione walked back to the castle, feeling Saturday couldn't come quickly enough. They would have felt sorry for Hagrid when the time came for him to say bye to Norbert if they hadn't been so worried about what they had to do. It was a very dark, cloudy night, and they were a bit late arriving at Hagrid's hut because they'd had to wait for Peeves to get out of the way in the entrance hall, where he'd been playing tennis against the wall. Hagrid had Norbert packed and ready in the large crate. He's got lots of rats and some brandy for the journey, said Hagrid in a muffled voice. Let's pack his teddy bear in case he gets lonely. From inside of the crate came ripping noises sounding to Harry, as though the teddy was having his head torn off. Bye-bye, Norbert, Hagrid sobbed, as Harry and Hermione covered the crate with an invisibility cloak and stepped underneath it themselves. Mummy will never forget you. How they managed to get to the castle, they never knew. Midnight took nearer and nearer as they heaved Norbert up this marble staircase in the entrance hall, along the dark corridors, up another staircase, then another. Even one of Harry's shortcuts didn't make the work much easier. Nearly there, Harry panted as they reached the corridor beneath the tallest tower. Then a sudden movement ahead of them almost made them drop the curtain. Forgetting that they were already invisible, they shrank into the shadows, staring at a dark outlines of two people grappling with each other 10 feet away. A lamp flared. Professor McGonagall, in a tartan bathrobe and a hairnet, had Malfoy by the ear. Detention, she shouted, and 20 came from Slytherin, wandering him around in the middle of the night. How dare you! You don't understand, Professor. Harry Potter's coming. He's got a dragon. What the rubbish? How dare you tell such lies? Come on. I shall see if Professor Snape will let you. Malfoy. The steep spiral staircase up to the top of the tower seemed the easiest thing in the world after that. Not until they'd stepped out into the cold air did they throw off the cloak, glad to be able to breathe properly again. Hermione did a sort of jig. Hermione's got attention. I could sing. Don't, Harry advised her. Chuckling about Malfoy, they waited, Norbert thrashing about in his scrape. About 10 minutes later, 4 broomsticks came swooping out of the darkness. Really, are you going to use a broomstick security Norbert all the way to where? Okay, whatever. That makes plenty of sense. That. Chuckling about Malfoy. Charlie's friends were cheery a lot. They showed Harry and Hermione the harness they rigged up so they could suspend Norbert between them. They all helped buckle Norbert into safety. And then Harry and Hermione shook hands with the others. Harry and Hermione shook hands with the others and thanked them very much. Welcome into Swing, Harry's Stories. At last, Norbert was going, gone. They slipped back down the spiral staircase, their hearts as light as their hands, now that Norbert was off them. No more dragon. Malfoy was in detention. What could spoil their happiness? The answer to that was waiting at the foot of the stairs. As they stepped into the corridor, Filch's face loomed suddenly out of the darkness. Well, 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 he whispered. We are in trouble. They left the invisibility cloak on top of the tower. Chapter 15. The Forbidden Forest. Things couldn't have been worse. Filch took them down to Professor McGonagall's study on the first floor, where they sat and waited without saying a word to each other. Hermione was trembling. Excuses, alibis, and wild cover stories chased each other around Harry's brain, each more feeble than the last. Harry couldn't see how they were going to get out of trouble this time. They were cornered. How could they have been so stupid as to forget the cloak? There was no reason on earth that Professor McGonagall would accept them, except for them, except for their. There was no reason on earth that Professor McGonagall would accept for their being out of bed and creeping around the school in the dead of night, let alone being up in the tall astronomy tower, which was out of bounds except for classes. Add Norbert in the invisibility cloak, and they might as well be packing the bags already. Had Harry thought that things couldn't have been worse? He was wrong. When Professor McGonagall appeared, she was leading Neville. Harry, Neville said. Neville burst out the moment he saw the other two. I was trying to find you to warn you. I heard Malfoy saying he was going to catch you. He said you had a drag. Harry shook his head violently to shut Neville up, but Professor McGonagall had seen. She looked more likely to be fire than Norbert as she towered over the three of them. I would have never believed it of an enemy. Mr. Filch says you were up in the astronomy tower. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Explain yourselves. It was the first time Hermione had ever failed to answer the teacher's question. She was staring at her slippers, as still as a statue. I think I've got a good idea of what's going on, said Professor McGonagall. It doesn't take a genius to work it out. You fed Draco Malfoy some possible story about a dragon, trying to get him out of the bed and into trouble. I've already caught him. I suppose you think it's funny that Longbottom heard the story and believed it too? Harry caught Neville's eye and tried to tell him without words that it wasn't true. But Neville was looking stunned and hurt. Poor, blundering Neville. Harry knew it must have cost him what it cost him. To try to find them in the dark, to warn them. I'm disgusted, said Professor McGonagall. 4 students out of bed in one night. I've never heard of such a thing before. You, Miss Granger, I thought you had more sense. As for you, Mr. Potter, I thought Gryffindor meant more to you than this. All 3 of you will receive detentions. Yes, you, Mr. Longbottom. Nothing gives you the right to walk about in the school at night, especially these days. It's very dangerous. And 50 points will be taken from Gryffindor. 50? Harry gasped. They would lose the lead he'd won in the last Quidditch match. 50 points each, said Professor McGonagall, breathing heavily through her long pointed nose. Professor, please, you can't. Don't tell me what I can and cannot do, Potter. Now get back to bed, all of you. I've never been more ashamed of Gryffindor students. 150 points lost. That put Gryffindor in last place. In one night, they ruined any chance Gryffindor had for the House Cup. Harry felt as though the bottom had dropped out of his stomach. How could they ever make up for this? Harry didn't sleep all night. He could hear Neville sobbing into his pillow for what seemed like hours. Harry couldn't think of anything to say to comfort him. He knew Neville, like himself, was dreading the dawn. What would happen when the rest of Gryffindor found out what they'd done? At first, words passing giant hourglasses recorded their house points. The next day, thought there'd been a mistake. How could they suddenly have 150 points fewer than yesterday? And then the stories started to spread. Harry Potter, the famous Harry Potter, their hero of two Quidditch matches, had lost them all those points. Him and a couple of other stupid first years. From being one of the most popular and admired at school, Harry was suddenly the most hated. Even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs turned on him because House kept everywhere Harry went. People pointed and didn't trouble to lower their voices as they insulted him. Slytherins, on the other hand, clapped as they walked past. I'm whistling and shouting, "Thanks, Potter! We owe you!" One. Only Ron stood by him. They'll forget in a few weeks. Fred and George have lost loads of points in all the time they've been here, and people still like them. They've never lost 150 points in one go, though, have they? Said Harry miserably. Well, no, Ron admitted. It was a bit late to repair the damage, but Harry swore to himself not to meddle in things that weren't his business from now on. He'd had hit, he'd had it with sneaking around the spire. He felt so ashamed of himself that he went to Wood and offered to resign from the Quidditch team. Resign? Wood thundered. What good will that do? How are we going to get any points back if we can't win at Quidditch? But even Quidditch had lost its fun. The rest of the team wouldn't speak to Harry during practice. If they had to speak about him, they called him a seeker. Hermione and Neville were suffering too. They didn't have nearly as bad as the time as Harry, because they weren't as well known. But nobody would speak to them either. Hermione had stopped drawing attention to herself in class, keeping her head down and working in silence. Harry was almost glad that the exams weren't far away. All the studying he had to do to keep his mind off his misery. He, Ron, and Hermione kept to themselves, working late into the night, trying to remember the ingredients in complicated potions. Learn charms and spells by heart. Memorize the dates of magical discoveries. Yeah, going to Goblin Rebellions. Oh, sorry, Goblin Rebellion. Ugh, sounds so boring. Then, about a week before their exams were due to start, Harry's new resolution not to interfere in anything that didn't concern him was put to an unexpected test. Walking back from the library on his own one afternoon, he heard someone whimpering from a classroom up ahead. As he drew closer, he heard Quirrell's voice. No, not again, please. It sounded as though someone was threatening him. Harry moved closer. All right. He heard Quirrell sob. Next second, Quirrell came hurrying out of the classroom, straightening his turban. He was pale and looked as though he was about to cry. He strode out of sight. Harry didn't think Quirrell had even noticed him. He waited until Quirrell's footstep had been disappeared and peered into the classroom. It was empty, but a door stood ajar at the other end. Harry was halfway toward it before he remembered what he'd promised himself about not meddling. All the same, he'd have gambled 12 sorcerers stone that Snape had just left the room. And from what Harry had just heard, Snape would be walking with a new spring in his step. Quirrell seemed to have given in at last. Harry went back to the library, where Hermione was testing Ron on astronomy. Harry told him what he'd heard. Snape's done it then, said Ron. If Quirrell's told Ron him how to break his anti-dark force spell, it's still fluffy though. Maybe Snape's has, maybe Snape's found a way to get past them without asking Hagrid, said Ron, looking up at thousands of books surrounding them. I bet there's a book around here somewhere. And here telling you how to get past a giant three-headed dog. So what do we do, Harry? The light of adventure was kindling again in Ron's eyes. But Hermione answered before Harry could. Go to Dumbledore. That's what we should have done ages ago. We'll try anything ourselves. We'll be thrown out for sure. But we've got no proof, said Harry. Where else do we're scared to back us up? Snape only got to say he doesn't know what how the troll got in the Halloween. He's nowhere near the third floor. Who do you think he'll believe? Will believe him or us? It's not exactly a secret. We hate him. Dumbledore think we made it up just to get him sacked. Filch wouldn't help us if his life depended on it. He's too friendly with Snape. The more students get thrown out, the better. You'll think. And don't forget, we're not supposed to know about the stone or Fluffy. That'll take a lot of explaining. Hermione looked at this, but Ron didn't. If we just do a bit of poking around. No, said Harry flatly. We've done enough poking around. He pulled a map of Jupiter toward him and started to learn the names of his moons. The following morning, notes were delivered to Harry, Hermione, and Neville at the breakfast table. They were all the same. Your detention will take place at 11 o'clock tonight. Meet Mr. Phillips in the entrance hall. Professor McGonagall. Please restroom. Alright, check. Harry had forgotten they still had detentions to do in the further of the points they'd lost. He half expected Hermione to complain that this was a whole night of study and loss, but she didn't say a word. Like Harry, she felt they deserved what they got. At 11 o'clock that night, they said goodbye to Ron in the common room and went down an entrance hall with Neville. Phillips was already there, and so was Malfoy. Harry had also forgotten that Malfoy had gotten his attention too. Follow me, said Phillips, lighting a lamp and leading them outside. I bet you'll think twice about breaking the school rule again, won't you, eh? He said at them. Oh, yes, hard work and pain are the best teachers, if you ask me. It's a pity they let the old punishments die out. Hang you by your wrists from the ceiling for days. For a few days, I've got the chains still in my office. Keep them well oiled in case they're ever needed. Right off we go. And don't think running off now. It'll be worse for you if you dare. They marched off across the dark rooms. Neville kept sniffing. Harry had wondered what about their punishment was going to be. It must be something really horrible, or Filch wouldn't be sounding so delighted. The moon was bright, with clouds scudding it across, throwing them into darkness. Ahead, Harry could see lighted windows of Hagrid's hut. Then they heard a distant shout. Is that you, Filch? Hurry up. I want to get started. Harry's heart rose. If they were going to be working with Hagrid, it wouldn't be so bad. Huh. His relief must have showed on his face. As Filch said, I suppose you think you'll be enjoying yourself with that oath. Well, think again, boy. It's into the forest you're going. And I'm much mistaken if you'll all come out in one piece. At this, Neville let out a little moan, and Malfoy stopped dead in his tracks. The forest, he repeated, and he didn't sound quite as cool as usual. We can't go in there at night. There's all sorts of things in those werewolves, I heard. Neville clutched the sleeve of Harry's robe and made a choking noise. That's your problem, isn't it? Said Filch. That's your problem, isn't it? Said Filch, his voice cracking with glee. Should have thought of that werewolves before you got in trouble, shouldn't you? Hagrid came striding toward them out of the dark, Fang at his heel. He was carrying his large crossbow, and a quiver of arrows hung over his shoulder. About time, he said. I've been waiting for a half an hour already. All right, Harry, Hermione. I shouldn't be too friendly to them, Hagrid, said Filch coldly. They're here to be punished, after all. That's why you're late, is it? Said Hagrid, frowning at Filch. Been lecturing them, eh? It's not your place to do that. You've done your bit. I'll take them over from here. I'll be back at dawn, said Filch. For what's left of them, he added nastily. And he turned and started towards the castle, his lamp bobbing away in the darkness. Malfoy now turned to Hagrid. I'm not going into the forest, he said, and Harry was pleased to hear the note of panic in his voice. You are if you want to stay at Hogwarts, said Hagrid fiercely. You've done wrong, and now you've got to pay for it. But this is servant stuff. It's not for students to do. I thought we'd be copying lines or something. My father knew I was doing this heat. Tell you, this is how it is, Hogwarts, Harry growled. Copying lines. What good is that to anyone? You'll do something useful, or you'll get out. If you think your father would rather you ask for a Now go back up to the castle. Go back. Go on. Malfoy didn't move. He looked at Hagrid furiously, but then dropped his voice. Right then, said Hagrid. Now listen carefully. This is dangerous. Hey, Holly, good morning. Welcome to stream. What we're doing tonight, I don't want to take no one risks. Follow me over here a moment. He led them to the very edge of the forest. Holding his lamp up high, he pointed down a narrow, winding earth track that disappeared into the thick black trees. A light breeze lifted their hair as they looked into the forest. Look there, said Hagrid. See that stuff shining on the ground? Silvery stuff. That's unicorn blood. There's a unicorn in there, been hurt badly by some. This is the second time this week in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're gonna try and find the poor thing. We might have to put it out of its misery. And what happens if the unicorn finds us first? Whatever hurt the unicorn finds us first, said Malfoy, unable to keep the fear out of his voice. There's nothing in that lives in this forest. I'll hurt you if you're with me or Fang, said Harry. And keep clear of the path. Right now, we're gonna split into two parties and follow a trail in different directions. There's blood all over the place. It must have been staggering. Around since last night at least. I want Fang, said Malfoy quickly, looking at Fang's long teeth. All right, I warn you, he is a coward, said Hagrid. So me, Harry, and Hermione will go one way. Draco, Neville, and Fang will go another. Now, if any of us finds a unicorn, we'll send up green sparks, all right? Get your wands out and practice now. That's it. Now, if anyone gets into trouble, send up red sparks, and we'll all come find you. So be careful. Let's go. The floor was black and silent. A little way into it, they reached a fork in the earth path, and Harry, Hermione, and Hagrid took their left path, while Malfoy, Neville, and Fang took the right. They walked in silence, their eyes on the ground. Every now and then, a ray of moonlight through the branches above lit spots of blue blood on the fallen leaves. Harry saw that Hagrid looked very worried. Could a werewolf be killing the unicorns? Harry asked. Not fast enough, said Hagrid. It's not easy to catch a unicorn. They're powerful magic creatures. I never knew one to be hurt before. They walked past a mossy tree stump. Harry could hear running water. There must be a stream somewhere close by. There were still spots of unicorn blood here and there along the winding path. You all right, Hermione? Hagrid whispered. Don't worry, it can't have gone far. It's hurt that badly. And then we'll be able to get behind that tree. Hagrid seized Harry and Hermione and hoisted them off the path behind a towering oak. He pulled out an arrow, fitted it into his crossbow, raising it, ready to fire. The three of them listened. Something was slithering over dead leaves nearby. It sounded like a cloak trailing to the ground. Harry was wincing up the dark path. After a few seconds, the sound faded away. I knew it, he murmured. There's something here that shouldn't be. A werewolf? Harry suggested. That wasn't no werewolf. And it wasn't no unicorn either, said Hagrid grimly. Follow me. Be careful now. They walked more slowly, ears straining for the faintest sound. Suddenly, in a clearing ahead, something definitely moved. Who's there? Hagrid shouted. Show yourself! On down! And into the clearing came. Was it a man or a horse? To the waist, a man. with red hair and beard, but below that was a horse's gleaming chestnut body with a long reddish tail. Harry and Hermione's jaws dropped. "Oh, it's you, Ron," said Hagrid in relief. "How are you?" He walked forward and shook the centaur's hand. "Good evening to you, Hagrid," said Ryan. He had a deep, sorrowful voice. "Were you going to shoot me?" "Can't be too careful, Rona," said Hagrid, patting his crossbow. "There's something bad loose in that forest. Miss Forest. This is Harry Potter and Hermione Granger, by the way. Students up at the school. And this is Ronan, you two. He's a centaur." "We'd noticed," said Hermione faintly. "Good evening," said Ronan. "Students, are you? Did you learn much up at the school?" Uh, a bit, said Hermione timidly. "A bit. Well, what's something?" Ronan sighed. He flung back his head and stared at the sky. "Mars is bright tonight." "Yeah, yeah," said Hagrid, glancing up to him. "Listen, I'm glad we've run into you, Ron. But there's a unicorn been hurt. You seen anything?" Ronan didn't answer immediately. He stared unblinkingly upward, then sighed again. "Always the innocent are the first victims. So it has been for ages past, so it is now." "Yeah," said Hagrid. "But have you seen anything, Ronan? Anything unusual?" "Mars is bright tonight," Ronan repeated, while Hagrid repeated him impatiently, watching impatiently. "Unusually bright." "Yeah, but I was mean anything unusual a bit nearer home," said Hagrid. "So you haven't noticed anything strange?" Yet again, Ronan took a while to answer. At last, he said, "The forest hides many secrets." A movement in the trees behind Ronan made Hagrid raise his bow again, but it was only a second centaur. The second centaur, black-haired and bodied, and wilder looking than Ronan. "Hello, Ben," said Hagrid. "All right." "Good evening, Hagrid. I hope you are well." "Well enough. Look, I've just been asking Ronan. You seen anything odd in here lately? There's a unicorn been injured. Well, you know anything about it?" Van walked over to stand next to Ronan. He looked skyward. "Mars is bright tonight." "We've heard," said Hagrid impatiently. Said Hagrid comfortably. "Well, if either of you do see anything, let me know, won't you? We'll be off then." Harry and Hermione followed him out of the clearing, staring over their shoulders at Ronan and Van until the trees blocked their view. "Never," said Hagrid irritably. "Try to get a straight answer out of a centaur. Ready, stargazers. Not interested in anything closer than the moon." "Are there many of them in here?" "Oh, a fair few. Keep themselves to themselves mostly. But they're good enough about turning up if I ever want a word. They're deep mind centaurs. They know things. Just don't let on about much." "Do you think there was a centaur we heard earlier?" "Does that sound like hooves to you?" "Nah, if you ask me, that's what's been killing the unicorns. Never heard anything like it before." They walked on through the dense, dark trees. Harry kept looking nervously over his shoulder. He had the nasty feeling they were being watched. He was very glad they heard Hagrid and his crossbow with him. They had just passed a bend in the path when Hermione grabbed Hagrid's arm. "Hagrid, look! Red sparks! The others are in trouble!" You wait here, shouted Hagrid. Stay on the path. I'll come back for you. They heard him crashing away through the undergrowth and stood looking at each other, very scared, until they couldn't hear anything but the rustling leaves around them. You don't think they've been hurt, do you? You don't think they've been hurt, do you? Whispered Hermione. I don't care if Malfoy has, but if something's got Neville, it's our fault if he's out here in the first place. The minutes dragged by. Their ears seemed sharper than usual. Harry seemed to be picking up every sigh of the wind, every cracking wood twig. What's going on? Where were the others? At last, a great crunching noise announced Hagrid's return. Malfoy, Neville, and Fang were with him. Hagrid was fuming. Malfoy, it seemed, had sneaked up behind Neville and grabbed him as a joke. Neville had panicked and sent up the sparks. We'll be lucky to catch anything now with the racket you two are making. Right, we're changing groups. Neville, you stay with me and Hermione. Harry, you go with Fang and this idiot. I'm sorry, Harry whispered to Harry in a whisper. But you'll have a harder time frightening you. We've got to get this done. So Harry set off into the heart of the forest with Malfoy and Fang. They walked for nearly half an hour, deeper and deeper into the forest, till the path became almost impossible to follow because the trees were so thick. Harry thought the blood seemed to be getting thicker. There were splashes of the root on the roots of the tree, as though the poor creature had been thrashing around in pain close by. Harry could see a clearing ahead through the tangled branches of an ancient oak. Look, he murmured, while he was on top Malfoy. Something bright white was gleaming on the ground. They inched closer. It was a unicorn, all right. It was dead. Harry had never seen anything so beautiful and sad. Its long, slender legs were struck out at odd angles where it had fallen, and its mane was spread pearly white on the dark leaves. Harry had taken one step toward it when a slithering sound made him freeze where he stood. A bush on the edge of the clearing quivered. Then, out of the shadows, a hooded figure came crawling across the ground like some stalking beast. Harry, Malfoy, and Fang stood transfixed. The cloaked figure reached the unicorn, lowered its head over the wound, and began, on the animal side, and began to drink its blood. Oh! Malfoy let out a terrible scream and bolted. So did Fang. The hooded figure raised its head and looked right at Harry. The unicorn blood was dribbling down its front. It got to its feet and came swiftly toward Harry. He couldn't move for fear. Then, a pain he never felt before pierced his head. It was as though his scar were on fire. Half blinded, he staggered backward. He heard hooves behind him, galloping. Something jumped clean over Harry, charging at the figure. The pain in Harry's head was so bad he fell to his knees. It took him a minute or two to pass. When he looked up, the figure had gone. A centaur was standing over him, not running or baying. This one looked younger. He had white blonde hair and a palomino body. Palomino. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Are you all right? Said the centaur, pulling Harry to his feet. Yes, thank you. What was that? The centaur didn't answer. He had astonishingly blue eyes, like pale sapphires. He looked carefully at Harry. His eyes were moving on the scar that stood out, livid, on Harry's forehead. You are the Potter boy, he said. You had better get back to the flag. The forest is not safe at this time, especially for you. Can you ride? It'll be quicker this way. My name is Ferenz, he added, as he lowered himself on his front legs so that Harry could clamber onto his back. There was suddenly a sound of more galloping from the other side of the clearing. Ron and a band came bursting through the trees, their flanks heaving and sweaty. Ferenz, what are you doing? You have a human on your back? Have you no shame? Are you a common mule? Do you realize who this is? Said Franz. This is Potter Boy. The quicker he leaves the forest, the better. What have you been telling him? Growled Bane. Remember, friends, we are sworn not to set ourselves against the heavens. Have we not read what is to come in the movements of the planets? Ronan pawed the ground nervously. I'm sure Ferenz thought he was acting for the best, he said in his gloomy voice. Ben kicked his back legs in anger. For the best? What is that to do with us? Centaurs are concerned with what has been foretold. It is not our business to run around like donkeys after stray humans in our forest. Ferenz suddenly reared on his hind legs in anger, so that Harry had to grab his shoulders to stay on. Do you not see that unicorn? Ferenz bellowed at Bane. Do you not understand why it was killed? Or how the plan has not let you in on that secret? I set myself against what is lurking in the forest, Bane, yes, with humans alongside of me if I must. And Ferenz whispered best he could. They plunged off into the forest, leaving Ronan and Bane behind them. Harry didn't have a clue what was going on. Why is Bane so angry? What was that thing with you saving me from anyway? Ferenz slowed to a walk, warned Harry to keep his head bowed in case of low-hanging branches, but did not answer Harry's question. They made their way through the trees in silence for so long that Harry thought Ferenz didn't want to talk to him anymore. They were passing through a particularly dense patch of trees, however, when Ferenz suddenly stopped. Harry Potter, do you know what unicorn blood is used for? No, said Harry, startled by the odd question. We've only used the horn and tail hair in potions. That is because it is a monstrous thing to slay a unicorn, said Ferenz. Only one who has nothing to lose and everything to gain will commit such a crime. The blood of the unicorn will keep you alive, even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something so pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. Harry stared at the back of Francis' head, which was dappled, dappled silver in the moonlight. But who would be that desperate? He wondered aloud. If you're going to be cursed forever, death is better, isn't it? It is, Ferenz agreed. Unless all you need is to stay alive long enough to drink something else. Something that will bring you back to full strength and power. Something that will mean you can never die. Mr. Potter, do you know what is hidden in that school at this very moment? The Sorcerer's Stone, of course, the elixir of life. But I don't understand who. Can you think of nobody who has waited many years to return to power, who has clung to life? Oh, it was as though an iron fist had clenched suddenly around Harry's heart. Over the rustling of trees, he seemed to hear once more what Hagrid had told him on the night they had met. Some say he died. Codswallop, in my opinion. Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die. do you mean? Harry croaked. That was full. Harry! Harry! Are you alright? Hermione was running toward them down the path. Hagrid puffing along behind her. I'm fine, said Harry, hardly knowing what he was saying. The unicorn's dead, Hagrid. It's in that clearing back there. This is where I leave you, friends murmured as Hagrid hurried off to examine the unicorn. You are safe now. Harry slid off his back. Good luck, Harry Potter. The planets have been read wrong before now, even by centaurs. I hope this is one of those times. He turned and cantered back into the depths of the forest, leaving Harry shivering behind him. Ron had fallen asleep in the dark common room, waiting for him to return. He shouted something about Quidditch fouls when Harry roughly shook him awake. In a matter of seconds, though, he was wide-eyed as Harry began to tell him and Hermione what had happened in the forest. Harry couldn't sit down. He paced up and down in front of the fire. He was still shaking. Harry couldn't sit down. He paced. Oh, he was still shaking. Snape wants to stone for Voldemort, and Voldemort is waiting in the forest. And all this time, we thought Snape just wanted to get rich. Stop saying the name, said Ron in a terrified whisper, as if he thought Voldemort could hear him. Harry wasn't listening. Fred saved me, but he didn't have to. But he shouldn't have done so. Bane was furious. He was talking about interfering with the planets. Say is going to happen. They must show that Voldemort's coming back. Bane thinks friends should have let Voldemort kill me. I suppose that's written in the stars as well. Will you stop saying the name? Ron hissed. So all I've got to do is wait for now. For now, is Snape to steal the stone. Harry went on feverishly. Then Voldemort will be able to come and finish me off. Well, I suppose Bane will be happy. Hermione looked very frightened, but she had a word of comfort. Harry, everyone says Dumbledore was one you know who's ever afraid of. With Dumbledore around, you know who can't touch you. Anyway, who says the centaurs are right? It sounds like fortune telling to me. And Professor McGonagall says that's a very imprecise branch of magic. The sky had turned late before they stopped talking. They went to bed exhausted, their throats sore, but the night surprises weren't over. When Harry pulled back his sheets, he found his invisibility cloak folded neatly underneath him. There was a note pinned to it, just in case. Chapter 16. Through the Trapdoor. Alright, chat, we got... A long chapter. Alright, chat, we only got another 50 pages to read. Let me go take another bathroom break real quick. Refill on some water. And we are back with chapter 16. Through the trapdoor. In years to come, Harry would never quite remember how he had managed to get through his exams when he half expected Voldemort to come bursting through the door at any moment. Yet, all the while, the days crept by, and there could be no doubt that Fluffy was still alive and well behind the locked door. It was sweltering hot, especially in the large classroom where they did their written papers. He was given special new quills for the exam, which had been bewitched with anti-cheating spells. Okay. They had practical exams as well. Professor Flitwick called them one by one into his class to see if they could make a pineapple tap dance across the desk. Professor McGonagall watched him turn a mouse into a snuff box. Points were given for how pretty the snuff box was, but taken away if it had whiskers. Snape made them all nervous, breathing down their necks when they tried to remember how to make a forgetfulness potion. Harry did the best he could, trying to ignore the stabbing pains in his way, which had been bothering him ever since his trip into the forest. Neville thought Harry had a bad case of exam nerves because Harry couldn't sleep. Well, the truth was that Harry kept being awakened by his old nightmare, except that it was now worse than ever because there was a hooded figure dripping blood in it. Maybe it was because they hadn't seen what Harry had seen in the forest, or because they didn't have scars burning on their foreheads. But Ron and Hermione didn't seem as worried about the stone as Harry. Ah, that's what's good. The idea of Voldemort certainly scared them, but he didn't keep visiting them in their dreams. And they're too busy with their studying. They didn't have much time to fret about what Snape or anyone else might be up to. Their very last exam was History of Magic. 1 hour of answering questions about batty old wizards who invented self-stirring cauldrons and they'd be free. Free for a whole wonderful week until their exam results came out. When the ghost of Professor Binns told them to put down their quills and roll up their parchment, Harry couldn't help cheering with the rest. That was far easier than I thought it would be, said Hermione, as they joined the crowd flocking on the sunny grounds. I needn't have learned about the 1637 World Code of Conduct or the uprising of Alfred's Ega. Hermione always liked to go through the exam papers afterward. Ron said this made him feel ill, so they wandered down to the lake and walked under a tree. The Weasley twins and Lee Jordan were tickling the tentacles of a giant squid, which was basking in the warm shallows. No more studying, Ron said happily, stretching out on the grass. You could look more cheerful, Harry. We've got a more week before we find out how badly we've done. There's no need to worry yet. Damn recycling truck. Harry was rubbing his forehead. I wish I knew what this means. He burst out angrily. My scar keeps hurting. It's happened before, but never as often as this. Go to Madame Pomfrey, Hermione suggested. I'm not ill. I think it's a warning. Means danger's coming. Ron couldn't get worked up. It was too hot. Harry, relax. Hermione's right. The Sorcerer's Stone is safe as long as Dumbledore's around. Anyway, we've never had any proof Snape found out how to get past Fluffy. He nearly had his leg ripped off once. He's not going to go try it again anymore. Neville will play Quidditch for England before Harry lets Dumbledore down. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off the lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do, something important. When he tried to explain this, Hermione said, "That's just the exams. I woke up last night and halfway through my transfiguration notes before I remembered we'd done that one." Harry was quite sure the unsettled feeling didn't have anything to do with work, though he watched it now. "Hey, Amber, welcome in. Today we're finishing the series." He watched an owl flutter toward the school, the bright blue sky, a note clamped in his mouth. Hagrid was the only one who ever sent him letters. Hagrid would never betray Dumbledore. Hagrid would never tell anyone how to get past Fluffy. Never. But, nice, nice. Harry suddenly jumped to his feet. What are you headed?" said Ron sleepily. "I've just thought of something," said Harry. He had turned white. "We've got to go and see Hagrid. Now." "Why?" answered Hermione, hurrying to keep up. "Don't you think it's a bit odd?" said Harry, scrambling up the grassy slope. "But what Hagrid wants more than anything else in the world is a dragon, and a stranger turns up who just happens to have an egg in his pocket. How many people wander around with dragon eggs and Wizard Wall? Lucky they found Hagrid, don't you think? Why didn't I see it before?" "What are you talking about?" said Ron. But Harry, sprinting across the grounds toward the forest, didn't answer. Hagrid was sitting in the armchair outside his house. His trousers and sleeves were rolled up, and his was shoving peas in a large bowl. "Hello," he said, smiling. "Finish your exams? Got time for a drink?" "Yes, please," said Ron, but Harry cut him off. "No, we're in a hurry, Hagrid. I've got to ask you something. You know the night you won Norbert? What did the stranger you were playing cards with like?" "Don't know," said Hagrid, casually. "He won't take his cloak off." He saw three of them look stunned and raised his eyebrows. "It's not that unusual. Get a lot of funny folk in the Hogshead. That's one of the pubs down in the village. Might have been a dragon dealer, mightn't he? I never saw his face. He kept his hood up." Harry sank down next to the bowl. "Peas. What did you talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all?" "Boo, you left already, Amber?" Oh, never mind. There you are. Mm. "What did y'all talk to him about, Hagrid? Did you mention Hogwarts at all?" "Might have come up," said Hagrid, frowning as he tried to remember. "Yeah, he asked what I did. I told him I was gamekeeper here. He asked a bit about sort of creatures I look after, so I told him. And that's it. What I'd always really wanted was a dragon. And then, I can't remember too well, because he kept on buying me drinks. See? Yeah. Then he said he had dragon eggs, and we could play cards for it if I wanted. But he had to be sure I can handle it. He didn't want to give it to any old home. So I told him after Fluffy and Dragon would be easy. Dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy?" Harry asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Well, yeah. How many three-headed dogs do you mean? Even around Hogwarts?" So I told him. "Fluffy's a piece of cake if you know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music and he'll go straight to sleep." Hagrid suddenly looked horrified. "I shouldn't have told you that," he blurted out. "Forget I said it. Hey, where are you going?" Harry, Ron, and Hermione didn't speak to each other at all until they came at the entrance hall, which seemed very cold and gloomy after the grounds. "We've got to go to Dumbledore." Hagrid told the stranger how to get past Fluffy. and it was either Snape or Voldemort under that cloak. It must have been easy once he'd gotten Harry drunk. I just hope Dumbledore believes us. Friends might stick us up for back us up if Bane doesn't stop him. Where's Dumbledore's office? They looked around. It was hoping to see a sign pointing them in the right direction. They had never been told where Dumbledore lived, nor did they know anyone who had been sent to see him. We'll just have to, Harry began. But a voice suddenly rang across the hall. What are you three doing inside? It was Professor McGonagall, carrying a large pile of books. We want to see Professor McGonagall, said Hermione, rather bravely. Harry and Ron thought. See Professor Dumbledore? Professor McGonagall repeated, as though this was a very fishy thing to want to do. Why? Harry swallowed. Now what? It's sort of a secret, he said, but he wished at once he hadn't, because Professor McGonagall's nails flared. Professor Dumbledore left 10 minutes ago, she said coldly. He received an urgent owl from the Ministry of Magic and flew off for London at once. He's gone, said Harry frantically. Now, Professor Dumbledore is a great wizard. Very great wizard, Potter. He has many great demands on his time. But this is important. Something you have to say is more important than the mystery and magic, Potter. Look, said Harry, throwing caution to the winds. Professor, it's about the Sorcerer's Stone. Whatever Professor McGonagall had expected, it wasn't that. The books she was carrying tumbled out of her arms, so she didn't pick them up. How do you know? She spluttered. Professor, I think I know that someone's going to try and steal the stone. I've got to talk to Professor Dumbledore. She eyed him with a mixture of shock and suspicion. Professor Dumbledore will be back tomorrow, she said finally. I don't know how you found out about the stone, but what's the sword? No one can possibly steal it. It's too well protected. But Professor Potter, I know what I'm talking about, she said shortly. She bent down and gathered the phone books. I suggest you all go back outside and enjoy the sunshine. But they didn't. It's tonight, said Harry, once he was sure Professor McGonagall was out of the shot. Snape's going through the chapboard tonight. He's found out everything he needs. Now he's got Dumbledore out of the way. He sent that note. I bet the Ministry of Magic will be a real shock when Dumbledore turns up. But what can we? Hermione gasped. Harry and Ron wheeled around. Snape was standing there. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. They stared at him. There's so much to be inside on a day like this, he said, and without an odd, twisted smile. We were, Harry said, began, without any idea what he would say. You want to be more careful, said Snape. Hanging around like this, people get up to something, and Gryffindor really can't afford to lose any more points, can it? Oh, good, Amber. Lucky you. Who, I mean, what you making? Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Lucky there. Harry flushed. He turned to go aside, but Snape called back. Be warned, Potter. Any more nighttime wanderings, and I will personally make sure you are expelled. Good day to you. He strode off in the direction of the staff room. Out on the stone steps, Harry turned to the others. Right, here's what we've got to do, he whispered urgently. One of us has to keep an eye on Snape. Wait outside the staff room. Follow him after he leaves. Hermione, You'd better do that. Why me? It's obvious, said Ron. You can pretend to be waiting for Professor Flitwick, you know? He put on a high voice. Professor Flitwick, I'm so worried. I think I got question 14B wrong. Oh, shut up, said Hermione. But she agreed to go and watch after out for Snape. And we'd better stay outside the third floor corridor, he told Ron. Come on. But that part of the plan didn't work. No sooner had they reached his door, separating Fluffy from the rest of the school, than Professor Trump McGonagall turned around, up and again, and this time she lost her temper. I suppose you think they're harder to get past than a peckle and jumpnuts? She stormed. Enough of this nonsense? Sounds tasty. Enough of this nonsense. If I hear you've come anywhere near it again, I'll take another 50 points from Gryffindor. Yes, Weasley? From my own house? Harry and Ron went back to the common room. Harry had just said, at least Hermione's on Snape's tail. And the portrait of the fat lady swung open and Hermione came in. I'm sorry, Harry, she wailed. Snape came out and asked me what I was doing, so I said I was waiting for Flitwick. And Snape went to get him, and I've only just got away. I don't know where Snape went. Well, that's it then, isn't it? The other two stared at him. He was pale, and his eyes were glittering. I'm going out of here tonight. I'm going to try to get the stone first. You're mad, said Ron. You can't, said Hermione. After McGonagall and Snape has said, you'll be expelled. So what? Harry shouted. Don't you understand? Snape told the stone. Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you ever heard what it's like when he was trying to take over? Be in Hogwarts to get expelled from. You'll flatten it or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore, can't you see? Do you think he'll leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor wins the House Cup? If I get caught before I get to Stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursley and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a little later, a bit later than I would have, because I'm never going back to the dark side. I'm never going over to the dark side. I'm going through that trap door tonight. Nothing you two is going to stop. He says going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents. Remember? He glared at them. You're right, Harry, said Hermione in a small voice. I'll use the invisibility cloak, said Harry. It's just lucky I got it back. But would it cover all three of us? Said Ron. All three of us? Oh, come off it. You don't think we'd let you go alone? Of course not, said Hermione briskly. How do you think you'd get to the stone without us? I better go look through my books. There might be something useful. Oh, shit, sorry. That part got to me just a bit. I like that. Fucking wrong. Uh, uh, uh. If we get caught, you two will get expelled too. Not if I can help it, said Hermione grimly. Flitwick told me a secret. I got 112% on everything. They're not throwing on me after that. Oh, you, Hermione. And, the three of them sat nearly apart. The common room. Nobody but that. None of the Gryffindors had anything to say anymore. After all, this was the first night he had been upset by it. Hermione was skimming through all her notes, hoping to come across one of the enchantments they were about to try to break. Harry and Ron didn't talk much. Both of them were slowly thinking, unable to connect the chat. Please try again later. Weird. To come across one. Sorry about that, chat. There we go. Turn back chat on. Slowly, the room. Slowly, the room emptied as people drifted off to bed. Better get to cook, one mom muttered as Lee Jordan finally left, stretching and yawning. Harry ran upstairs to the dark dormitories. He pulled out the cloak, and then his eyes fell on the flute Hagrid had given him for Christmas. He pocketed it on Fluff to use on Fluffy. He didn't feel much like singing. He ran back down to the common room. Shout out to the two mister. We better put the cloak back on here. Make sure it covers all three of us. Phil spots one of our feet wandering along on its own. Where are you going? Said a voice from the corner of the room. Neville appeared from behind. What's up, Raider? Yes, sir. Teacher Dave is finishing the book today. Just in time, my friend. What are you doing? Said a voice from the corner of the room. Neville peered from behind an armchair, clutching Trevor the Toad. He looked as though he'd been making another bid for freedom. Nothing, Neville, nothing. Neville stared at their guilty faces. You're going out again, he said. No, 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 said Hermione. No, we're not. Why don't you go to bed, Neville? Harry looked at the grandfather clock by the door. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. Snape might even know how, even now, be playing Fluffy to sleep. You can't go out, said Neville. You'll be caught again. Gryffindor will be in even more trouble. You don't understand. This is important. But Neville was clearly steeling himself to do something desperate. I wouldn't let you, he said, hurrying to stand in front of the portrait hole. I'll fight you. Neville, get away from the hole and don't be an idiot. Don't you call me an idiot. I don't think you should be breaking any more rules. You were the one who told me to stand up to people. Yes, but not to us, said Ron in exasperation. Neville, you don't know what you're doing. He took a step forward, and Neville dropped Trevor the Toad, who left out of sight. Go on then, try to hit me, said Neville, raising his fists. I'm ready. Harry turned to Hermione. Do something, he said desperately. Hermione stepped forward. Neville, I'm really, really sorry about this. She raised her wand. Pertificus totalis, she cried, pointing it at Neville. Neville's arm snapped to his side. His legs sprang together, his whole body rigid. He swayed where he stood and then fell flat on his face, stiff as a board. Hermione ran to him and turned over. Neville's jaws were turned together so he couldn't speak. Only his eyes were moving, looking at them in horror. What have you done to him? Harry whispered. It's a full body. It's a full body barn, said Hermione miserably. Oh, Neville, I'm so sorry. We had to, Neville. No time to explain. You'll understand later, Neville, said Ron as they stepped over him and pulled him on the invisibility cloak. But leaving Neville lying motionless on the floor didn't seem like a very good omen. In their very nervous state, every statue's shadow was like filch. Every distant breath of wind sounded like Peeves swooping down on them. At the front of the first set of stairs, they spotted Mrs. Norrez skulking near the top. Oh, let's kick her. Just this once, Ron whispered in Harry's ear. But Harry shook his head. As they climbed carefully around her, Mrs. Norrez turned her lamp-like eyes on them, but didn't do anything. They didn't meet anyone else until they reached the staircase up to the third floor. Peeves was bobbing halfway up, loosening the carpet so that people would trip. "Who's there?" he said, suddenly as they climbed toward him. He narrowed his wicked black eyes. "Yeah, Ritter, I'm having a pretty good day, my guy. I just seen the Discord notification pop up. No, you're there, even if I can't see you. Are you good or ghosty or wee student beastie?" He rose up in the air and floated there, squinting at them. "Should call Filch, I should. If something's a creeping around unseen." Harry had a sudden idea. "Peace," he said in a hoarse whisper. "The bloody Baron has his own reasons for being invisible." Peeves almost fell out of the air and stopped. He caught himself in the air in time and hovered about a foot off the stairs. "So sorry. So sorry for letting us, my parents, sir," he said greasily. "My mistake, my mistake. I didn't see you. Of course I didn't. You're invisible. Forgive me, old Peevesy, sir. This is a real joke, sir." "I have business here, Peeves," croaked Harry. "Stay away from this place tonight." "I will, sir. I will, sir. I will. I most certainly will," said Peeves, rising up in the air again. "Hope your business goes well, Baron. I will not bother you." And he scooted off. Brilliant, Harry. A few seconds later, there they were. They were there, outside the third floor corridor, and the door was already ajar. "Well, there you go," said Harry quietly. "Snape's already got past Fluffy." Seeing the door open somehow seemed to upon all three of them, seemed to impress upon all three of them what was facing them. Underneath the cloak, Harry turned to the other two. "If you want to go back, I won't blame you," he said. "You can take the cloak. I don't need it now." "Don't be stupid," said Ron. "What are coming?" said Hermione. Harry pushed the door open. As the door creaked, low, rumbling growls met their ears. All three of the dogs' noses sniffled madly in their direction, even though it couldn't see them. "What's that at its feet?" Hermione whispered. "Looks like a harp," said Ron. "Snape must have left it here." "It must wake up at the moment you stop playing." "Well, here goes." He put Hagrid's flute to his lips and blew. It wasn't really a tune, but from the first note, the beast's eyes began to droop. Harry's Harry hardly drew breath. Slowly, the dog's growls ceased. It tottered on its paws and fell to its knees, then slumped to its on the ground, fast asleep. "Keep playing," Ron warned Harry, as they slipped off the cloak and crept toward the trapdoor. They could feel the dog's hot, smelly breath as they approached the giant heads. "I think we'll be able to pull the door open," said Ron, peering over the dog's back. "Want to go first, Hermione?" "No, I don't." "All right." Ron gritted his teeth and stepped carefully over the dog's legs. He bent and pulled the ring of the trapdoor, which swung up and open. "What can you see?" Hermione said anxiously. "Nothing. Just black. There's no way of climbing. We'll just have to drop." Harry, who was still playing the flute, waved at Ron to get his attention and pointed at himself. "You want to go first? Are you sure?" said Ron. "I don't know how to do this thing goes." "Give the flute to Hermione so she can keep him asleep." Hermione handed the hand of the flute over. In a few seconds' silence, the dog growled and twitched. But the moment Hermione began to play, it fell back into its deep sleep. Harry climbed over and looked through the trapdoor. There was no sign of the bottom. He lowered himself through the hole until it was hanging on by his fingertips. Then he looked up at Ron and said, if anything happens to me, don't follow. Go straight to the Allery and said headwood to Dumbledore, right? Right, said Ron. See you in a minute. Orange apples for my teacher. Appreciate Ravis. See you in a minute, I hope. And Harry let go. Cold, damp air rushed past him as he fell down, and flump with a funny muffled sort of thump. He landed on something soft. He sat up and felt around, his eyes not used to the gloom. It felt as though he was sitting on some sort of plant. It's okay, he called up to the light the size of a postage stamp, which was the open trap door. It's a soft landing. You can jump. Ron followed right away. He landed, sprawled next to Harry. What's this stuff? Was his first words. Dunno, some sort of plant thing? Suppose it's here to break the fall. Come on, Hermione. The distant music stopped. There was a loud bark from the dog, but Hermione had already jumped. She landed on Harry's other side. We must be miles under the school. Lucky this plant thing is here, really. Lucky, shrieked Hermione. Look at both of you. You both. She leapt up and struggled toward a damp wall. She had to struggle because the moment she had landed, the plant had started to twist snake-like tendrils around her ankles. As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly in a long creeper without their noticing. Ruh-roh. Hermione had managed to free herself before the plant got a firm grip on her. Now she watched in horror as the two boys fought to pull off the plants off them. But the more they strained against it, the tighter, faster the plant wanted against them. Stop moving, Hermione ordered them. I know what this is. It's Devil's Snare. Oh, I'm so glad I know what it's called. That was a great help, snarled Ron, leaning back, trying to stop the plant from curling around his neck. Shut up. I'm trying to remember how to kill it, said Hermione. Well, hurry up. I can't breathe. Harry grasped, wrestling with it as it curled around its chest. Devil's Snare, Devil's Snare. What did Professor Snape say? It likes it dark and damp. So light a fire. Harry choked. Yes, of course. But there's no wood, Hermione cried, wringing her hands. Have you gone mad, one of those? Are you a witch or not? Oh, right, said Hermione, and she whipped out her hand, waved it, muttered something, and set a jet of the same bluebell flames she had used on Snape at the plant. In a matter of seconds, the two boys felt it loosening its grip as it cringed away from the light and warmth. Wriggling and flailing, it unraveled itself from their bodies, and they were able to pull free. Lucky you pay attention to herbology, Hermione, said Harry as he joined her by the wall, wiping sweat off his face. Yeah, and lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in no crisis. There's no way. Honestly. This way, said Harry, pointing down a stone passageway, which was the only way forward. All they could hear apart from their footsteps was the gentle drip of water trickling down the walls. The passageway sloped downward, and Harry was reminded of Gringotts. With an unpleasant guilt of the heart, he remembered the danger the dragons said to be guarding vaults in the Wizard's Bank. They met a dragon, fully grown dragon. Norbert had been bad enough. Can you hear something? Ron whispered. Harry listened. A soft rustling and clinking seemed to be coming up from ahead. Do you think it's a ghost? I don't know. Sounds like wings to me. There's light ahead. I can see something moving. They reached the end of the passageway and saw before them a brilliantly lit chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. It was full of small, jewel-bright birds, fluttering and tumbling all around the room. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room? Probably, said Harry. They don't look very vicious. I suppose if they all swoop down at once. Well, there's no other choice. I'll run. He took a deep breath, covered his face with his arms, and sprinted across the room. He expected to feel sharp beaks and claws tearing at him any second, but nothing happened. He reached the door and touched. He pulled the handle, but it was locked. The other two followed him. They tugged and heaved at the door, but wouldn't budge. Not even when Hermione tried to offer more a charm. Now what? Said Ron. These birds. They can't be here just for decoration, said Hermione. They watched the birds soaring overhead, glittering. Glittering? They're not birds, Harry said suddenly. They're keys. Wind keys. Look carefully. So that must mean the chamber while the other two squinted up at the flock of keys. Yes, look, broomsticks. We've got to catch the keys to the door. But there are hundreds of them. Ron examined the lock on the door. We're looking for a big old-fashioned one. Probably silver, like the handle. They each seized the broomstick and kicked off into the air, soaring into the midst of a cloud of keys. They grabbed and snatched, but the bewitched keys darted and dived so quickly it was almost impossible to catch one. Not for nothing, though, was Harry the youngest seeker in the century. He had a knack for spotting things other people didn't. After a minute's weaving about through the world of rainbow feathers, he noticed a large silver key that had a bent wing, as if it had already been caught and stuffed roughly into the keyhole. That one, he called to the others. That big one. There. No, there. The bright blue wings. The feathers all crumpled on the side. Ron dived. Hermione rocketed upward. The key dodged them both, and Harry streaked after it. It sped toward the wall, carrying forward, and with a nasty, crunching noise, pinning it against the stone with one hand. Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed through the high chamber. They landed quickly, and Harry ran to the door, the key struggling in the hand. He rammed it into the lock and turned. It worked. The moment the lock had clicked open, the key took flight again, looking very battered now that it had been cut twice. Ready? Harry asked the other two, his hand on the door handle. They nodded. He pulled the door open. The next chamber was so dark they couldn't see anything at all. But as they stepped into it, a light suddenly flooded the room and to reveal an astonishing sight. They were standing on the edge of a huge chessboard. Behind the black chessmen, which were all taller than they were, and carved from what looked like black stone. Facing them, way across the chamber, were white pieces. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shivered slightly. The towering white chessmen had no faces. Now what do we do? Harry whispered. It's obvious, isn't it? Said Ron. We've got to play our way across the room. Behind the white pieces, they could see another door. How? Said Hermione nervously. I think, said Ron, we're going to have to beat chessmen. He walked up to a black knight, put his hand on to touch the knight's horse. At once the stone sprang to life. The horse pawed the ground, and the knight turned his helmeted head to look down at Ron. Do we have to join you to get across? The Black Knight nodded. Ron turned to the other two. This needs thinking about, he said. I suppose we've got to take place with three of the black pieces. Harry and Hermione stayed quiet, watching Ron think. Finally, he said, Now, don't be offended or anything, but neither of you are that good at chess. We're not offended, said Harry quickly. Just tell us what to do. Well, Harry, You take the place of that bishop, and Hermione, you go there instead of that castle. What about you? I'm going to be a knight, said Ron. The chessmen seemed to have been listening, because at the words of a knight, a bishop, and a castle, turned their backs on the white pieces and walked off the board, leaving three empty squares that Harry, Ron, and Hermione took. White always plays first in chess, said Ron, pointing across the board. Yes, look. A white pawn had moved forward two squares. Ron started to direct the black pieces. They moved silently wherever he sent them. Harry's knees went trembling. What if he lost? Harry moved diagonally four squares to the right. Their first real shot came when the other knight was taken. The White Queen smashed him to the floor and dragged him off the board, where he lay quite still, face down. Had to let that happen, said Ron, looking shaken. It leaves you for you to take the bishop, Hermione. Go on. Every time one of the men was lost, the white piece showed no mercy. Soon there was a huddle of limp black players slumped against the wall. Twice, Ron only just noticed in time that Harry and Hermione were in danger. He himself darted across the board, taking almost as many white pieces as they had lost, black ones. We're nearly there, he muttered suddenly. Let me think. The White Queen turned her blank face toward him. Yes, said Ron softly. It's away. You have to be taken. No! Harry and Hermione shouted. That's chess, snapped Ron. You've got to make sacrifices. I'll make my move and she'll take me. That leaves you free to checkmate the king, Harry. But do you want to stop Snape or not? Ron, look, if you don't hurry up, you'll already have the stone. There was no alternative. Ready? Ron called, his face pale but determined. Here I go. Now don't hang around once you've won. He stepped forward, and the White Queen pounced. She struck Ron hard against the head with her stone arm, and he crashed to the floor. Hermione screamed but stayed on her square. The White Queen dragged Ron to the side. He looked as if he'd been knocked out. Yeah, I'd say so. Shaking, Harry moved three spaces to the left. The White King took off his crown and threw it at Harry's feet. They had won. The chessmen parted and bowed, leaving the door ahead clear. With one last desperate look back at Ron, Harry and Hermione charged to the door and looked up the next passageway. What if He'll be alright, said Harry, trying to convince himself. What do you reckon's next? We've had Sprouts, that was the Devil's Snare. Flitwick must have put chimes on the keys. McGonagall transfigured the chessmen to make them alive. That leaves Quirrell's spell and Snape's. They had reached another door. All right, Harry whispered. Go on. Harry pushed it open. A disgusting smell filled their nostrils, making both of them fill the robes up over their nose. Eyes watering, they saw, flouted out on the floor in front of them, a troll even larger than the one that they had tackled out, cold with a bloody lump on his head. I'm glad we didn't have to fight for that one, Harry whispered as he stepped carefully over one of his massive legs. Come on, I can't breathe. So that must have been Quirrell's task, was a troll. He pulled open next door, hardly daring to look at what came next. But there was nothing very frightening in there. Just a table with 7 differently shaped bottles standing on it in line. Snape, said Harry. What do we have to do? Ooh, yeah, another person for me to block. They stepped over the threshold, and immediately a fire sprang up behind them in the doorway. It wasn't ordinary fire either. It was purple. At the same instant, black flames shot up in the doorway, leading onward. They were trapped. Look! Hermione sees a roll of paper lying next to the bottles. Harry looked over her shoulder to read it. Danger lies before you, while safety as Snape. So let me try to use his voice. Hmm. Danger lies before you, while safety lies behind. Two of us will help you, whichever you would find. One among us seven will let you move ahead. Another will transport the drink back instead. Two among our number hold only nettle wine. Three of us are killers, waiting hidden in line. Chose, unless you wish to stay here forevermore. To help you in your choice, we give you these clues four. First, however slyly the poison tries to hide, you will always find some unnettled wine's left side. Second, different are those who stand at either end, but if you would move onward, neither is your friend. Third, as you see clearly, all are different size. Neither dwarf nor giant holds death in their insides. Fourth, the second left and the second on the right are twins once you taste them, though different at first sight. What in the living hell was that supposed to mean? Brilliant, said Hermione. This isn't magic, it's logic. A puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck in here forever. But so will we, won't we? Of course not, said Hermione. Everything we need is in here, on this paper. 7 bottles, 3 are poison, 2 are wine. One will get us safely through the black fire, and one will get us back to the purple. But how do we know which to drink? Give me a minute. Hermione read the paper several times. And then she walked up and down the lines of bottles, muttering to herself and pointing at them. At last, she clapped at her hands. She clapped her hands. Got it, she said. The smallest bottle will get us to the black fire, towards the stone one. Harry looked at the tiny bottle. There's only enough for one of us, he said. It's hardly once we looked at each other. Which one would get you back to the purple flames? Hermione pointed a rounded bottle to the wine. You drink that, said Harry. No, listen. Get back to Ron and get Ron. Grab brooms from Flying Key. They'll get you out of the trap door and past Fluffy. Go straight to the outer and send Hedwig to Dumbledore. We need it. I might be able to get a hold off Snape for a while, but I'm no match for him, really. But Harry, what if you know who's with him? Well, I was lucky once, wasn't I? Said Harry, pointing at his scar. I might get lucky again. Hermione's lips trembled, and she suddenly dashed at Harry and threw her arms around him. Hermione, Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. And yet he hasn't performed one spell this entire book or movie. Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. I'm not as good as you, said Harry, very embarrassed as she let go of him. Me, said Hermione. Books and cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery. And, oh, Harry, be careful. You drink first, said Harry. You are sure which journey. Positive. She took a long drink from the round bottle at the end and shuddered, and died from the poison. Just joking. It's not poison, said Harry anxiously. No. It's like ice. Quick, go before it's off. Good luck. Take care. Go! Hermione turned and walked straight through the purple fire. Harry took a deep breath and picked up the small bottle. He turned to face the black flames. Here I come, he said. And he drank the thin bottle in one gulp. It was indeed as though ice was flooding through his body. He put the bottle down and walked forward. He braced himself, saw the black flames licking his body, but couldn't feel them. For a moment, he could see nothing but dark fire. And then he was on the other side, in the last chamber. There was already someone there, but wasn't Snape. Wasn't even Voldemort. Chapter 17. The Man with Two Faces. Alright, the final chapter. So, what do y'all say? Should I still read that final chapter? Because I do got to take another pee break. Well, the reason why I've been having to pee so much, y'all, is I've been drinking 2 of these cups throughout this whole stream. Alright. These are 32-ounce cups. They're pretty big cups. So, yeah. Final intermission break, I promise. Yeah. And once we get back, we will finish the final chapter. And when we finish the final chapter, we can go hop on some Fortnite. Yes, finish the final chapter, huh, Ray? All right. Yeah, my guy. So they all right, y'all. I am back. Nice and relieved. Damn, everybody left me? I wasn't gone that long. Just had to pee. Damn. Oh well. Chapter 17. The Man with Two Faces. It was Quirrell. You, gasped Harry. Quirrell smiled. His face wasn't twitching at all. I, me, he said calmly. I wondered whether I'd be meeting you here, Potter. But I thought, Snape, Severus, Quirrell laughed. And it wasn't his usual quivering about trouble either, but cold and sharp. Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? So useful to have him swooping around like an overgrown bat next to him, who would suspect, oh, sister, Professor Quirrell. Harry couldn't take it in. This couldn't be true. But Snape tried to kill me. No, no, no. I tried to kill you. Your friend Miss Granger accidentally knocked me over as she rushed to set fire to Snape at that Quidditch match. She broke my eye contact with you. Another few seconds and I'd have gotten you off that room. I'd have managed it before then, and Snape had been muttering a counter curse, trying to save you. Snape was trying to save me? Of course, said Quirrell coolly. Why do you think he wanted to referee your next match? He was trying to make sure I didn't do it again. Funny, really. He needn't have bothered. I couldn't do anything with Dumbledore there. I'm watching. All other teachers thought Snape was trying to stop Gryffindor from winning. He did make himself unpopular. And a waste of time. When after all that, I'm going to kill you tonight. Quirrell snapped his fingers. Rope sprang out of thin air, and wrapped themselves tightly around Harry. You're too nosy to live, Potter. Scurrying around school on Halloween like that? For all I knew, you'd seen me coming to look at what was guarding the stone. You, Liquor Troll? Certainly. I have a special gift for trolls. You must have seen what I did to the one in the chamber back there. Fortunately, while everyone was running around looking for it, Snape, who already suspected me, went straight to the third floor to head me off. And not only did my troll fail to beat you to death, that three-headed dog didn't even manage to bite Snape's leg off properly. Now wait quietly, Potter. I need to examine this interesting mirror. It was only then that Harry realized what was standing behind Quirrell. It was the mirror of Erised. This mirror is the key to finding the stone, Quirrell murmured, tapping his way around the frame. Trust Dumbledore to come up something like this, but he's in London. I'll be far away by the time he gets back. All Harry could think of doing was to keep Quirrell talking and stop him from concentrating on the mirror. I saw you and Snape in the forest, he blurted out. Yes, said Quirrell idly, walking around the mirror to look at the back. He was on to me by that time, trying to find out how far I'd got. He suspected me all along, tried to frighten me. As though he could when I had Lord Voldemort on my side. Quirrell came out from behind the mirror, and stared hungrily into it. I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master. But where is it? Harry struggled against the ropes binding him, but they didn't give. He had to keep Quirrell from giving his whole attention to the mirror. But Snape always seemed to hate me so much. Oh, he does, said Quirrell casually. Heavens, yes. He was at Hogwarts with your father, didn't you know? They loathed each other. But he never wanted you dead. But I heard you a few days ago, sobbing. I thought Snape was threatening you. For the first time, a spasm of fear floated across Quirrell's face. Sometimes, he said, I find it hard to follow my master's instructions. He is a great wizard, and I am weak. He was there in the classroom with you? Harry gasped. He is with me wherever I go, said Quirrell quietly. I met him when I traveled the world. A foolish young. Alrighty, Amber. I'm glad to see you're still up in stream, though. Still listening. A young, foolish man I was then, full of ridiculous ideas about good and evil. Lord Voldemort showed me how wrong I was. There is no good and evil. There. What if it actually shows up as virtual hug or actual hug? Damn, one is virtual hug. Where's my food at? I'm hungry. All those readings got me hungry, chat. Quirrell came back out. Oh yeah, Quirrell came back. He suspected me. I tried to frighten me as well. I was a kid. Quirrell came back out from behind. The man stared hungrily into it. I see the stone. I'm presenting it to my master. But where is it? Harry struggled against the ropes binding him, but they didn't get. He had to keep Quirrell talking long enough. Oh shit, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry, shit. Since then, I have served him faithfully, although I have let him down many times. He has had to be very hard on me. Quirrell shivered suddenly. He does not forgive mistakes easily. When I failed to steal a stone from Gringotts, he was most displeased. He punished me, decided he would have to keep a closer watch on me. Quirrell's voice trailed away. Harry was remembering his trip to Diagon Alley. How could he have been so stupid? He'd seen Quirrell that very day, shaking hands with him at the Leaky Cauldron. Quirrell cursed under his breath. Don't understand. Is the stone inside in here? Should I break it? Harry's mind was racing. But I want more than anything else in the world this moment, he thought, is to find the stone before Quirrell does. So if I look in the mirror, I should see myself finding it, which means I'll see where it's hidden. But how can I look without Quirrell realizing what I'm up to? You try to edge to the left to get in front of the glass without Quirrell noticing, but the ropes around his ankles were too tight. He tripped and fell over. Quirrell ignored him. He was talking to himself. What does this mirror do? How does it work? Help me, master. So, Amber, what are those called? You keep on calling them chocolate pastry things, but what are they called? What does this mirror do? Here's horror. A voice answered, and the voice seemed to come from Quirrell himself. All right, chap. Okay, just Voldemort's voice now. And Amber, have you actually been in chat the whole time? Listening to me while you've been cooking? Use the boy. Use the boy. Quirrell rounded on Harry. Yes, Potter, come here. He clapped his hand once, and the ropes binding Harry fell off. Harry got slowly to his feet. Come here, Quirrell repeated. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry walked toward fudge chocolate pastry tarts. Huh? Gotcha. Sure, I do appreciate that. I must lie, he thought desperately. I must look and lie about what I see. That's all. Quirrell moved close behind him. Harry breathed in the funny smell that seemed to come from Quirrell's turban. He closed his eyes, stepped in front of the mirror, and opened them again. He saw his reflection, pale and scared looking at first. But a moment later, the reflection smiled at him. It put its hands into its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. It winked and put the stone back in its pocket. And as it did so, Harry felt something heavy drop in his real pocket. Somehow, incredibly, he'd gotten the stone. Well, said Quirrell impatiently, what do you see? Harry screwed up his courage. I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore, he invented. I've won the House Cup for Gryffindor. Quirrell cursed again. Damn! Or whatever curse word he might have used. Get out of the way, he said. As Harry moved aside, he felt the Sorcerer's Stone on his legs. Did he dare make a break for it? But he didn't walk 5 paces before a high voice spoke, though Quirrell's voice wasn't moving his lips. He lies. He lies. Potter, come back here, Quirrell shouted. Tell me the truth. What did you just see? The high voice spoke again. Let me speak to him, face to face. Master, you are not strong enough. I have strength enough for this. Harry felt as if the devil's snare was rooting into the spot. He couldn't move a muscle. Petrified. Petrified. He watched as Quirrell reached up and began to unwrap his turban. What was going on? The turban fell away. Quirrell's head looked strangely small without it. Then he turned slowly on the spot. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. Where there should have been a back to Quirrell's head, there was a face, the most terrible face Harry had ever seen. It was chalk white with glittering red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. Harry Potter, it whispered. Harry tried to take a step backward, but his legs wouldn't move. See what I've become, the face said. Mere shadow and vapor. I form only when I can share another's body. But there have always been those wounds that me into our hearts and minds. Unicorn blood has strengthened me these past weeks. You saw faithful Quirrell drinking it for me in the forest. And once I have the elixir of life, I will be able to create a body of my own. Now, why don't you give me that stone in your pocket? So he knew. The feeling suddenly surged back into Harry's legs. He stumbled backwards. Don't be a fool, snarled the face. Better save your own life and join me. Or you'll meet the same men as your parents. They died begging me for mercy. Liar! Harry shouted suddenly. Quirrell was walking backward at him, so that Voldemort could still see him. The evil face was now smiling. How touching, it hissed. I always valued bravery, you agree? Yes, boy, your parents are brave. I killed your father first, and he put up a courageous fight. But your mother needn't die. She was trying to protect you. Now give me the stone, unless you want her to have died in vain. Never! Harry sprang toward the flame door. Harry sprang towards the flame door, but Voldemort screamed, Seize him! And the next second, Harry felt Quirrell's hand close on his wrist. At once, a needle-sharp pain seared across Harry's scar. His head felt as though it was about to split in two. He yelled, struggling with all his might, and to his surprise, Quirrell let go of him. The pain in his head lessened. He looked around wildly to see where Quirrell had gone, and saw him hunched in pain. Looking at his fingers, they were blistering before his eyes. Seize him! Seize him! Shrieked Voldemort again, and Quirrell lunged, knocking Harry clean off his feet, landing on top of him, both hands around Harry's neck. Harry's scar was almost blinding him with pain, yet he could see Quirrell howling in agony. Master, I cannot hold him! My hands! My hands! And Quirrell, though pinning Harry to the ground with his knees, let go of his neck and stared, bewildered at his own palms. Harry could see as they looked burned, raw, red, and shiny. Then kill him, fool! It be done! Screeched Voldemort. Quirrell raised his hand to perform a deadly curse, but Harry, by instinct, reached up and grabbed Quirrell's face. Ah! Quirrell rolled off him, his face blistering too, and then Harry knew. Quirrell couldn't touch his bare skin, not without suffering terrible pain. But his only chance was to keep hold of Quirrell, keep him in pain long enough, in pain to keeping him in pain enough to stop him from doing a curse. Harry jumped to his feet, caught Quirrell by the arm, and hung on tight as he could. Quirrell screamed and tried to throw Harry off. The pain in Harry's head was building. He couldn't see. He could only hear Quirrell's terrible screams and Voldemort, kill him, and other making Harry's own head. Harry! He felt Quirrell's arm wrench from his grasp. Knew all lost. Down, down, down. Something gold was above him. The snitch! Catch it. But his arms were too heavy. He blinked. It wasn't the snitch at all. Here now the ghost narrowed. He blinked. It wasn't a snitch at all. It was a pair of glasses. How strange. He blinked again. The smiling face of Albus Dumbledore swam into view. Good afternoon, Harry, said Dumbledore. Harry stared at him, then remembered. Sir, the stone! It was Quirrell. He got the stone. Sir, quick! Calm yourself, dear boy. You are a little behind the times, said Dumbledore. Quirrell does not have the stone. Then who does, sir? Harry, please relax, or Madame Pomfrey will have me thrown out. I'm sorry, but can you imagine the nurse kicking out the headmaster? He'd be like, okay, you're fired. Harry swallowed and looked around him. He realized he must be in the hospital wing. He was lying in a bed with his white linen sheets. Next to him was a table piled high with what looked like half the candy shop. Tokens from friends and admirers, said Dumbledore, breathing. What happened down in the dungeons between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret, so naturally, the whole school knows. I believe your friends Mr. Fred and George Weasley were responsible for trying to send you to the toilet seat. No doubt they thought it would amuse you. Madame Pomfrey, however, but not be very hygienic, and confiscated it. How long have they been in here? 3 days. Mr. Ronald Weasley and Miss Granger will be most relieved you have come round. They have been extremely worried. But sir, the stone. I see you are not to be distracted. Very well, the stone. Professor Quirrell did not manage to take it from you. I arrived in time to prevent that. Although you are doing very well on your own, I must say. You got there. You got Hermione's owl. We must have crossed in midair. No sooner had I reached to London than it became clear to me that the place I should have been was the one I had just left. I arrived just in time to pull Quirrell off of you. It was you. I feared that it might be. I feared I might be too late. You nearly were. I couldn't have kept him off the stone much longer. Not the stone boy, you. The effort involved nearly killed you. For one terrible moment there, I was afraid to act. As for the stone, it has been destroyed. Destroyed? Said Harry blankly. But your friend, Nicholas Flamel. Oh, you know about Nicholas, said Dumbledore, sounding quite delighted. You did do the proper thing then, didn't you? Then properly, didn't you? Well, Nicholas and I have a little chat and agreed it's all for the best. But that means he and his wife will die, won't they? They have enough elixir stored to set their affairs in order, and then yes, they will die. Okay, so of course they got some stored away. Makes sense. Dumbledore smiled at the look of amazement on Harry's face. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelli, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to a well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. You know, the stone was really not much such a wonderful thing. As much money in life as you could want, two things humans will choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have an knack of choosing precisely those things that are worst for them. Harry lay there, lost for words. Dumbledore hummed a little and smiled at the ceiling. Sir, said Harry, I've been thinking, sir. Even if the stone's gone, well, I mean, you know who? Call him Voldemort, Harry. Always use the proper name for things. Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself. Yes, sir. Well, Voldemort's going to try other ways of coming back, isn't he? I mean, he hasn't gone, has he? No, Harry, he has not. He is still out there somewhere, perhaps looking for another body to share. Not truly being alive. He cannot be killed. He left Quirrell to die. He shows just as little mercy to his followers as his enemies. Nevertheless, Harry, while you may only have delayed his return to power, it will merely take someone else who is prepared to fight what seems a losing battle next time. And if he is delayed again and again, why, he may never return to power. Harry nodded, but stopped quickly because it made his head hurt. Then he said, Sir, there are some other things I'd like to know. If you could tell me, things I want to know the truth about. The truth, Dumbledore sighed. It's a beautiful thing and a terrible thing, and should therefore be treated with great caution. However, I shall answer your questions unless I have a very good reason not to, in which case I beg you'll forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie. Well, Voldemort said that he only killed my mother because she tried to stop him from killing me. But why would he want to kill me in the first place? Dumbledore sighed very deeply this time. Alas, the first thing you ask me, I cannot tell you. Not today, not now. You will know one day. Put it from your mind for now, Harry. When you're older, I know you hate to hear this. When you're ready, you will know. And Harry knew it would be no good to argue. But why couldn't Quirrell touch me? Your mother died to save you. If there was one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love, as powerful as your mother's for you, leaves its own mark, not a scar, no visible sign. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It is in your very skin, Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with the Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. Dumbledore now became very interested in the bird at the windowsill, which gave Harry time to dry his eyes on the sheet. When he had found his voice again, Harry said, And the Invisibility Cloak. Do you know who sent that to me? Ah, your father happened to leave it in my possession. And I thought you might like it. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Useful things. Your father used it mainly for sneaking off to the kitchen to steal food when he was here. And there's something else. Fire away. Quirrell and Snape. Professor Snape, Harry. Yes, him. Quirrell says he hates me because he hated my father. Is that true? Well, they did rather detest each other, not unlike yourself and Mr. Malfoy. And then your father did something Snape could never forgive. What? He saved his life. What? Yes, said Dumbledore dreamily. Funny, the way these people minds work, isn't it? Professor Snape couldn't bear being in your father's debt. I do believe he worked so hard to protect you as here because he felt that would make him and your father even. Then he could go back to hating your father's memory in peace. Harry tried to understand this, but made his head pound, so he stopped. And sir, there's one more thing. Just the one? How did I get the stone out of the mirror? Ah, now. I'm glad you asked me that. It was one of my more brilliant ideas. Between me and you. That's saying something. You see, only one who wants to find the stone, find it, but not use it, will be able to get it. Otherwise, they just see themselves making gold or drinking elixir of life. My brain surprises even me sometimes. Now, enough questions. I suggest you make a start on these sweets. Ah, Birdie bots every flavored beans. Are disgusting, chat. If y'all want me to eat in boxes on my will, I'll post a poll. But ugh. I was unfortunate enough in my youth to come across a vomit flavored one once. And since then, I'm afraid I've rather lost my liking for them. But I think I'll be in nice, safe with a nice toffee, don't you? He smiled and popped the golden brown bean into his mouth. Then he choked and said, Alas, earwax. Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, was a nice woman, but very strict. Just 5 minutes, Harry pleaded. Absolutely not. You let Professor Dumbledore in? Well, of course. That was the headmaster. Quite different. You need rest. I am resting. Look, lying down and everything. Oh, go on, Madame Pomfrey. Oh, very well, she said. Well, 5 minutes only. And she let Ron and Hermione in. Harry! Hermione looked ready to fling her arms around him again. But Harry was glad to see she held him herself in, as his head was still very sore. Oh, Harry, we were sure you were going to. Harry Dumbledore was so worried. The whole school's talking about it, said Ron. What really happened? It was one of those rare occasions where when the true story is even more strange and exciting than the wild rumors. Harry told him everything. Quirrell, the mirror, the stone, and Voldemort. Ron and Hermione were a very good audience. They gasped in all the right places. And when Hermione told them what was under Quirrell's turban, Hermione screamed out loud. So the stone's gone, said Ron, finally. For now, it's just going to die. That's what I said. But Dumbledore thinks that, what was it? Is a well organized mind. Death is but the next great adventure. Oh, it said he was off his rocker, said Ron, looking quite impressed at how crazy his hero was. Brilliant, but mad, I believe was his original words. So what happened to you two, said Harry. Well, when I got back, I got back all right. I brought Ron round. That took a while. We were dashing up to the alley to contact Dumbledore. When we met him dashing up to the alley to contact Dumbledore, when we met him in the entrance hall, he already knew. He just said, Harry's gone after him, hasn't he? And hurled Ron to the third floor. Do you think he meant to do it? Said Ron. Sending you your father's cloak and everything. Well, Hermione exploded. If he did, I mean to say, it's terrible. You could have been killed. No, it isn't, Harry said thoughtfully. He's a funny man, Dumbledore. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knew more or less that, boo, everybody left. And instead of stopping us, he just taught us. Uh, I think he knows more or less everything that goes on around here. I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try. And instead of stopping us, he just taught us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident he let me find out how the mirror worked. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could. Yeah, Dumbledore's office Walker, all right, said Ron proudly. Listen, you've got to be up in for the end of the first. Yeah. Listen, you've got to be up for the end of the year feast tomorrow. The points are all in the Slytherin's one, of course. You missed the last Quidditch match. We were steamrolled by Ravenclaw without you. But the food will be good. At that moment, Madame Pomfrey bustled out. You've had nearly 15 minutes. Now out, she said firmly. Now I got you. Okay. After a good night's sleep, Harry felt nearly back to normal. Hey, I'm just seeing looking at the count at the top of my screen is all. I want to go to the feast, he told Madame Pomfrey as she straightened his many candy boxes. I can, can't I? Professor Dumbledore says you are allowed to be allowed to go, she said stiffly, as though in her opinion Professor Dumbledore didn't realize how risky feasts could be. And you have another visitor. Oh, good, said Harry. Who is it? Hagrid sidled through the door as he spoke. As usual when he is indoors, Hagrid looked too big to be allowed. Either that or maybe Raiders left. Maybe Student Raider left. Hagrid's had sidled through the doors. He said, it's all my really fault, he sobbed, to his face in his hands. I told the evil get out and get past Fluffy. I told him. It was the only thing he didn't know. I told him. He could have died. All for a dragon egg. I'll never drink again. I should have been chucked out and made to live as a muggle. Hagrid, said Harry, shocked to see Hagrid shaking grief and remorse. Great tears streaming down into his beard. Lost my place, sorry. Hagrid, he'd had found out somehow. This is Voldemort we're talking about. He'd have found out even if you hadn't told him. You could have died, sobbed Hagrid. And don't say the name. Voldemort! Harry bellowed, and Hagrid was so shocked he stopped crying. I've met him, and I'm calling him by his name. Please, cheer up, Hagrid. We saved the stone. It's gone. You can't eat it. Have chocolate frog. I've got loads. Hagrid wiped his nose on the back of his hand and said, that reminds me. I've got you a present. It's not a sandwich, is it? Harry said Harry anxiously. And at last, Hagrid gave a loose chuckle. Nah, Dumbledore gave me the day off yesterday to fix it. Of course, he should have sacked me instead. Anyway, got you this. It seemed to be a handsome, leather-covered book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizard photographs. Smiling and waving at him from every page were his mother and father. Sent owls off to all your parents' old school friends asking for photos. Knew you didn't have any. Do you like it? Harry couldn't speak, but Hagrid understood. Harry made his way down to the end of the year feast alone that night. He had been held by Madame Pomfrey's fussing about, insisting on giving him one last checkup, so the great hall was already full. It was decked out in Slytherin's colors of green and silver to celebrate Slytherin's winning the House Cup for the 7th year in a row. A huge banner showing the Slytherin serpent covered the wall behind the high table. When Harry walked in there was a sudden hush, and then everybody started talking loudly at once. He slipped into a seat between Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table and tried to ignore the fact that people were standing up to look at him. Fortunately, Dumbledore arrived moments later. The babble died away. Another year gone, Dumbledore said cheerfully, and I must trouble you with an old man's wheezing waffle before we sink our teeth into our delicious feast. What a year it has been! Hopefully your heads are a little fuller than they were. You have a whole summer ahead to get them nice and empty before next year starts. Now, as I understand it, the house cut beer needs a warden. The points stand thus. In fourth place, Gryffindor with 312 points. In third place, Hufflepuff with 352 points. Ravenclaw with 426 points. And Slytherin 472. A storm of cheering and stamping broke out from the Slytherin table. Harry could see Malfoy banging his goblet on the table. It was a sickening sight. Yes, yes, well done, Slytherin, said Dumbledore. However, recent events must be taken into account. The room went very still. The Slytherin's smiles faded a little. I have a few last minute points to dish out. Let's see. Yes. First to Mr. Ronald Weasley. Ron went purple in the face. He looked like a radish with a bad sunburn. For the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years, I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Gryffindor cheers nearly raised the bewitched ceiling. The stars overhead seemed to be quiver. Percy could be heard yelling at Tom, the other prefects. My brother, you know, my youngest brother, got past Professor McGonagall's giant chess set. At last, silence again. Sorry, chat. Second, to Miss Hermione Granger, for the use of cool logic in the face of fire, I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Hermione buried her face in her arms. Harry strongly suspected she had burst into tears. Gryffindor up and down the table beside themselves. They were 100 points up. Third, to Mr. Harry Potter, said Dumbledore. The room went deadly quiet. For pure nerve and outstanding courage, I award Gryffindor House 60 points. The din was deafening. Those who could add up while young and so hoarse knew that Gryffindor now had 472 points, exactly the same as Slytherin. They had tied the house cup. If only Dumbledore had given Harry just one more point. Dumbledore raised his hand. The room gradually fell silent. There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. Let's go! Fucking Dumbledore with the fucking clutch. Gryffindor wins the House Cup. Someone standing outside the Great Hall might well have thought some sort of explosion had taken place. So loud was the noise that erupted from Gryffindor table. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood up and yell and cheer up as Neville, white with shock, disappeared under a pile of people hugging him. He had never won so much as a point for Gryffindor before. Harry, still cheering, you can see tears coming down from my face just a bit. Harry was still cheering, nudged Ron in the ribs and pointed at Malfoy. He couldn't have looked more stunned and horrified as if he just had the body binds curse put on him. Which means, Dumbledore called over a storm of applause, for even Ravenclaws and Hufflepuff were celebrating the downfall of Slytherin. We need a little change of decoration. He clapped his hands. In an instant, the green hangings became scarlet, and the silver became gold. The huge Slytherin servant vanished, and a towering Gryffindor lion took its place. Snape was shaking Professor McGonagall's hand. with a horrible, forced smile. He caught Harry's eye, and Harry knew at once that Snape's feelings towards him hadn't changed one jot. This didn't Harry one bit. This didn't worry Harry. It seemed as though life would be back to normal next year, or as normal as it ever got to Hogwarts. It was the best evening of Harry's life, better than winning at Quidditch or Christmas, or knocking out mountain trolls. You would never, ever forget tonight. Harry had almost forgotten the exam results were still to come, but they did. To their great surprise, both he and Ron passed with good marks. Hermione, of course, had the best grades of the first years. Even Neville scraped by. His good her biology marks making up for his abysmal potion one. They had hoped that Goyle, who was almost as stupid as he was mean, might be thrown out, but he had passed too. How, I have no idea. It was a shame, but as Ron said, you couldn't have everything in life. And suddenly, their wardrobes were empty, their trunks were packed, and Neville's toe was found lurking in a corner of the toilets. Notes were handed out to all students warning them not to use magic over the holidays. I always hope they'll forget to give us these, said Fred Weasley sadly. Hagrid was there to take them down to the first fleet of boats that sailed across the lakes. They were boarding the Hogwarts Express, talking and laughing as the countryside became greener and tidier, eating birdie pots every flavored beans as they sped past Muggle towns, pulling off their wizard robes and putting on jackets and coats, pulling into platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. It took quite a while for them to all get off the platform. A wizened old guard up by the ticket barrier let them go through the gate, and twos and threes that wouldn't attract attention, all bursting out of the solid wall at once and alarming the muggles. You must come stay this summer, said Ron. Both of you. I'll send you an hour. Thanks, said Harry. I'll need something to look forward to. People jostled them as they moved forward toward the gateway back to the Muggle room. Some of them called, Bye, Harry. See ya, Potter. Still famous, said Ron, grinning at him. Not where I'm going, I promise you, said Harry. Even Ron and Hermione passed through the gateway together. There he is, Mom. There he is. Look. It was Ginny Weasley, Ron's younger sister, but she wasn't pointing at Ron. Harry Potter! Look, Mom. I can see. Be quiet, Ginny. Let's read your point. Mrs. Weasley smiled at them. Is it here? She said. Very. Thanks for the fudge and sweater, Mrs. Weasley. Oh, it was nothing, dear. Ready, are you? It was Uncle Vernon, still purple-faced, still a mustache, still looking furious at the nerve of Harry, carrying an owl cage in a station full of ordinary people. Behind him stood Uncle Petunia and Dudley, looking terrified at the very sight of Harry. You must be Harry's family, said Mrs. Weasley. In a manner of speaking, said Uncle Vernon. Hurry up, boy. We haven't got all day. He walked away. Harry hung back for a last word with Ron and Hermione. See you over the summer, then. Hope you have good holidays, said Hermione, looking uncertainly at Uncle Vernon, shocked that anyone could be so unpleasant. Oh, I will, said Harry, and they were surprised at the grin that was spreading over his face. They don't know we aren't allowed to use magic at home. I'm going to have a lot of fun with Dudley this summer. All right, chat, and that was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It took me 3 hours and 5 minutes to read the last 4 chapters, chat. We get it. We got it through it. It took 3 attempts to read it. But hey, be on the lookout for the book It Next. That will be out. I don't know. I purchased a book last night and it's arriving tonight. So I might read it today. I may not. We shall see what happens. But until then, Daves-Raves out, and I will see you guys.